Hello everyone, my name is Random Gamer Riven and welcome to another randomized gaming video. And in this video we're going to be taking a look at the first act of the 1997 Westwood classic Blade Runner. Now I'll let the intro play out and I won't speak too much during the opening intro, I'll just voice over kindly the initial scrolling text that's learning. But this sets the scene beautifully for what is a classic cult point and click PC adventure that until this weekend I'd never actually played, despite the fact I've had a copy now for about 9 years. In the early 23rd century, the Tyrell Corporation advanced robot evolution into the Nexus phase, a being virtually identical to a human known as a replicant. The Nexus 6 replicants were superior in strength and agility and at least equal in intelligence to the genetic engineers who created them. Replicants were used off-world as slave labor in the hazardous exploration and colonization of other planets. After a bloody mutiny by a Nexus 6 combat team in an off-world colony, replicants were declared illegal on Earth under penalty of death. Special police squads, Blade Runner units, had orders to shoot to kill upon detection any trespassing replicants. This was not called execution, it was called retirement. Los Angeles, November 2019.
I'm leaving now.
Lucy, my sweet.
I cleaned out the tiger cage and sorted all the meal bins. So, if it's all right, it's my turn to fix dinner.
Haven't you forgotten something, little one? Just one little thing.
Mr. Runcer, please.
It's been a very long day.
I don't want to.
Now, Lucy, I thought we'd settled this last week. Don't let's forget who pays your salary. We're closed. Come back tomorrow. Wait! I haven't finished with you. I told you we're closed.
We're not here to buy, little man. We've come to sell.
You can't possibly have anything to interest me. These are extremely rare animals of the highest quality.
What a coincidence. So am I. That is the price for humility.
Oh, please, don't.
And what else might we interest you in today, sir? Perhaps some virtue?
Not my animals, please. I'm begging you.
But what of honor, little man? At what price? Honor.
Oh my God, no! That tiger is the rarest specimen ever seen.
Tiger, tiger, burning bright. The forest of the night.
BR 61661, report to precinct headquarters, code 3, repeat code 3.
I was just finishing up my 12 out on patrol when I got the call. Welcome relief considering that the most action I'd seen all night was a schizoid grandmother doing the shimmy in her underwear in the second sector.
BR 61661, report to division headquarters, code 3, repeat code 3.
Last time I had a 3 was when some hooker vomited Thunderbird on Bryant's desk, and yours truly led the cleanup crew. Year and a half on the job, it was still the dirtiest work I'd seen. Where's Captain Bryant?
Took a sick day. Got himself a heinous case of ptomaine poisoning. He asked me personally to run the unit in his absence.
Gouza was one of the old-time guys who took their knocks in the streets. He had a friendly way about him, but you didn't want to turn your back on him if you were less than a friend.
Hope you've been enjoying your leisure time, kid, because it's time to take that thumb out of your ass.
Hallelujah.
Don't get too excited. The other Blade Runners are all jammed up. Holden's sucking dinner through a straw. Gaff's working the Tyrell break-in, and Steele's working special undercover. Looks like you got this one by default.
You really know how to make a girl feel wanted.
Animal murder done at Runciter Zoological. Probably just be a schizoid glitz, but we got the call. Old man Runciter lost something like 1 billion chinions worth.
10 to 1, this ain't a job for Rep Detect.
You got something better to do? Perfect your French cooking, maybe?
Slumming tonight, Slim?
I thought you were on special assignment.
Wasn't too damn special after I had the suckers out.
What happened?
Couple of fours were masquerading as fibroplast insulators down at Kaiser. I dressed up like a nurse, they never had a chance.
I'll bet. You put him on the machine?
Hell no! There's a beautiful little thing in here called the magic, and it ain't ever been wrong. You develop it, you got a brilliant career ahead of you.
I'm working on it.
What's Gouza got you doing tonight?
AM at Runciter's.
Animal murder. Oh, those skin jobs got no respect for anything that truly lives and breathes. And that goddamn Eldon Tyrell ought to be zipped into a body bag and flushed into deep space.
Get rid of him, we'd be out of a job.
I think we're all overdue for a little off-world paid vacation. You can stop staring at my ass now.
You got eyes in the back of your head?
All you gotta do is ask, Slim.
Animal sales was a profitable and prestigious business since most real animals had died out after the Terran War. There were plenty of electric ones, though, powered by rechargeable batteries. No self-respecting human would own one of those frauds.
So here we are at Runciter's, and the first thing I'm just going to do is double check the options, because I'm going to check the speech is set to the loudest. And the other thing is actually activate conversation choices and the designer cut.
Ouch.
One of the reasons the conversation choice, it allows you to pick the order you speak rather than just having an automated chat order, and I prefer being able to choose myself than having the game speak for me.
What do you know?
About 30 counts of animal murder and 1 of aggravated assault. The shop's been thrashed. You ought to see this tiger cub they got in there. It's a goddamn tragedy.
How's old man Runciter holding up?
State of shock. He's been moaning and complaining about his world caving in.
You'd feel the same way if they were your animals. How many perps?
At least 2. Bloody footprints all over the scene.
Must be a delightful sight.
So you see the first line of questioning, I'm just going to chat to the police officer.
Find anything else out here?
Zilcho. Row actions inside. Abstract art. All over the walls and ceiling.
I never did appreciate art.
And then we're going to start exploring the scene, and the first thing you can note is you can actually click on the door
I
and
already
check
checked
whether it's
for
been
a crowbar,
forced
some kind of
open.
tool. No luck, but it looks like we've got some latents.
Make sure the lab boys run them through the mainframe, human and rep.
And there's a few other points. One of my slight gripes is a couple of the items later on are very, very small
Scratches
to
and paint
notice.
flecks, and I knew what they meant. Unless the city had bought a jet black fire truck, somebody had a big fat traffic ticket coming. Interesting.
And you can even rummage around this bin, although it doesn't yield anything,
even
but there are
remotely
other bins
interesting, but
later
hell,
on that you
if I
can
was gonna
actually
root
search for
through trash,
information.
my
So
expectations weren't
it's actually
too
got a
high.
very good sort of open world narrative system. I think Discworld Noir later reused a lot of this, and I'm hopeful Discworld Noir gets added to Scum at some
something?
point in
Piece
the
of
near
chrome.
future.
From a car?
Because there's one game I
No,
would
I
like to
think it's
replay, but
horse
at the minute
chrome.
it's a real nightmare.
Tag it and
'Cause
tag it.
I tried installing it myself at the
Find
weekend, but
anything else
Discworld
out
Noir
here?
does not
Zilcho.
play well
Row
on
actions
modern
inside.
systems without an awful lot of
Abstract art.
hacking
All over the walls
and
and
tweaks,
ceiling.
and a lot of people have been using virtual boxes to play it. So once you've exhausted sort of what you think is all the evidence in the scene, you can also do
Canvass
things like
the
look
area.
around, and you
Maybe
hear
somebody
we're
had his
saying
eyes
chat to the
open.
crowd.
I'm on it.
So the game's actually quite interesting in that it actually changes slightly each time you play through. Not a huge amount, it just changes who's replicants. and who isn't.
Judging
So there's
from
only
the
a
distance
few
between the prints, I was
changeable
looking for
variables.
two very big men. One dragged his right foot.
It's not like there's like
indicating
3 or
a
4 different
possible injury or
crimes at the
lameness.
start of the
The other
game, which would have
appeared a lot
been
more
far more
controlled,
interesting if there were
graceful
different
even.
crimes and things
Quite a
like that.
pair.
Which would have made you sympathise differently with the replicants or not, depending on what crime they committed at the
McCoy,
start and
LPD.
things like that.
I'm absolutely certain Lucy Devlin was involved in this heinous act. She's the young girl who works for me.
So this is Ron Sitter, who we saw in the intro, who's...
No, of course not. It was 2 men acting in concert with her, obviously.
Obviously. What'd they look like?
Big and scary and absolutely malevolent.
And I think depending on the player's mindset, will instantly probably this shot scene alone will decide what they've done, will decide whether you're thinking they're replicants and how you want to deal with them.
First, I thought they wanted money, but I don't keep any in the shop. Then I thought they wanted to steal my animals, but they started executing them.
Could they have been replicants?
Who else would be capable of such barbaric acts?
You ever do any business with the replicant manufacturers, Tyrell Corporation?
I resent that accusation.
Just wondering.
Officer, last May I personally sold Governor Colvig an exquisite Bergeron coat. I have been a guest at his house on 3 separate occasions. Do I look like I need to carry artificial product?
Tell me about this Lucy.
There's not a lot I can tell you. She's only worked for me for about a month. She's about 14 years old with pink hair. A very attractive young thing.
How'd you find her?
She came to me with a reference from Ogilvy's in the Northwest Zone. And he's a very reputable wholesaler.
You treat her well?
As well as any young tot should be treated.
She got a desk? Or someplace where she worked?
She used to eat over there.
So basically this weekend's the first time I really actually sat and played this, and it's actually a really...
See if you can dig up that reference from Ogilvy's.
It really
Yes,
is a very
it's
well
somewhere
crafted
here.
point-and-click
Just a
adventure.
moment.
The more you speak to characters like Runsitter there, you will probably form an opinion of him, whether you think he's completely legitimate or whether you think he's slightly shady from his actions and how he says
My
things.
precious one. She was my baby.
But one issue I do have, so
You
as
got
you
any
see that the
discs from
cameras
that
are
camera?
quite an obvious one.
It's irrelevant.
There is something else that is
Those
not at all
murderers
obvious that
also
you can pick up
destroyed
in
the
this scene
camera.
that I actually grab when I
Thousands
come
of
back to
Chileans
here.
worth.
And there are a
Maybe
few
you
things like that
photographed
that
them
do
before
slightly
they
annoy
shot
me
it
in
out.
this. Some of the
I
actual
guess you
items you can
must
pick up
point that.
aren't made that clear at all. So you really have to sort of move your mouse around almost to exact sections, and it does feel a little bit annoying. There is an issue with the progression flow as well. So, and I'll mention it because there's particularly a scene later on where you want to come back to Runsitter to ask some more questions, but he's
believe
vanished.
this is the
And
disc from
ironically,
last night.
you can then actually pressure him again in one of the later acts, but it feels like you should have been able to do that in the first act.
There's a test I'd like you to take.
So now I'm going to run the Voight-Kampff
I have a
test
lot
on
of
him,
cleaning
which is
up to do.
basically to test if
won't
people are a
take too long.
replicant or not. And this is actually a really interesting part of the game because this is actually, you can influence these tests depending on what you do. So you have 3 buttons to the left there for high intensity, low intensity and medium intensity questions that are designed to aggravate. You have the slider there which you
Reaction
can move,
time is
and
a
the red
factor in
button
this,
basically
so
sets
please
you the
pay attention.
baseline questions.
Where do you live?
Uptown. Your office already
So you can
has
see
my
there, you
address.
click the red button and it allows you to
What
move
do you do
the...
for a living?
It basically
I
sets a
trade in
baseline
hard
question
to find
that I'm asking
animals.
Runsitter. What you can do is you can
What's your
adjust that
name?
little node that's moved, the little
Emil
circle,
Runsitter.
and that enables you to perhaps get away with someone being a replicant who's a human,
You're
or
crying.
fibbing a
Why is
human
that?
into telling them they're a
Because
replicant.
All my animals.
So it works quite well, and I managed to do that in one of the tests where I knew one of the characters
What's
was
the
a
most
replicant, but I managed to then
embarrassing
fool
thing
it
that
so the
ever happened to
Voight-Kampff would
you?
say she was human, which was really
I'm not answering
interesting.
that.
So you have a
You're
hot,
watching
low,
an
medium,
old
high
movie.
intensity, and basically the
Shows
more
a
I rate
banquet
it, as
in
you can tell
progress.
whether they're
The guests
human or
are
not. Some of these
enjoying
questions
raw
are pretty
oysters.
strange, I have to
The
admit.
entree consists of boiled dog.
I'd turn it off.
Are you taking any drugs?
No.
You've been drafted into the army.
Adversity builds character.
Let me finish. During a boot camp hazing, you're bound, blindfolded, and forced to eat worms.
Oh, I see. The worms make it different, don't they? I'd have to report the perpetrators?
You return from work to find that your home has been burglarized.
Detective, I think you know I've just been through far worse than that.
You see an oversized book with pictures of exotic animals on the cover. The title is Big Game Hunting in Zaire. Curious, you flip it open. There's a picture of a man standing with his foot on a dead Cape buffalo.
This test was written by a psychopath.
You find yourself fascinated.
So once it starts bleeping, it tells you whether they're human replicant, or sometimes the subject will get so angry they'll say, no, I've had enough of this, and you won't know either way. In this case, he was a human. I followed the test the way it should be, but you can alter it by adjusting the little circle in the dial, and that now does allow you to change it. So you can basically play the game in one of two ways, either as a sort of law-abiding Blade Runner, just taking down replicants, or you can also play it as more of a sort of sympathetic role where you see what the replicants have done and perhaps let some of them go, etc. So there's lots of there's a couple of ways to play it, and there's about, I've seen some people said there was 13 endings, although a few of the guides said there was about 11 in total when you actually followed it through, just some slight variants. But yeah, there's quite a few endings to this, and the last chapter I believe plays out a bit different depending on what you do. So here we have the KIA, interesting name, which allows you to go through and review all the evidence you found so far. It literally just basically saves everything you found, and the new arrow shows the ones,
about 30 counts of animal murder.
The ones you've basically what's new. These are all the ones I found. Later on, there's a section in the database where you can upload information to the database. You can also download information as well from other detectives' ongoing cases, because you can see whether there's some overlap and things like that. So this is really smart from that perspective. I think there are a lot of ideas really well implemented here, but there's perhaps not enough diversity. One of the issues that I felt was that there could have been more starting cases, and when I did look, although there are quite a few minor events that can randomly change, the core of the game remains the same. There's just really the main way the ending plays out is A, who your love interest is, B, are you going to be a replicant sympathizer, or C, you're going to be a proper Blade Runner and just take down the replicants without questioning your orders. But largely the game plays out pretty much the same up until the end chapter. It would have been nice if there was more variant, and that's what I was saying about slightly iffy items. That bullet is so tiny to find, and there is an issue also with the progression that I found that slightly irritated me. I managed to get to locations where I knew I had to find characters, but when I went there they weren't there because I had to discover like an additional hint in the pictures. So I'm going to go to the police HQ and show you how the picture system works in a second. But so this is pretty much wrapping up what we found here. So I can basically ask the cop now, and actually because I told the cop to canvass the crowd, he's going to give me a few more hints and tips as well.
Find anything else out here?
This woman says she saw that kid who worked for Runciter hanging around with a big fat guy last week.
Find anything else out here?
This guy lives across the street. Says he heard a crash late last night. Looked out his window and saw a black sedan speeding away from the scene.
Find anything else out here?
Zilcho. Row actions inside. Abstract art. All over the walls and ceiling.
So I'm going to jump into our car and head off. At the minute you can only visit 4 locations, but more open up as you progress. We've got Runciter, we've got Chinatown. You can go back to Roy McCoy's apartment, and we can go to the police station. I won't be heading to the apartment in this video, but you can go there at any point. There are a few things that's worth going there. So there's some great interactive cutscenes, as you can see here. This really has been stylized and was based on the film. It's actually a story that runs parallel with the film, so there is some crossover. A couple of the characters from the film do appear in this, and you do even briefly get to see Decker in one of the photos, Harrison's Ford character. Apparently I did read one of the FAQs or guides said that Westwood did contact Harrison Ford to appear in the game, but he declined.
All units unit, stand by for emergency traffic.
when they approached him, but some of the cast did reappear, and Decker does appear in this, but only literally you see him in a picture from the back of the head. So one of the things to listen out to is things like the news broadcast like you had going on there, incident about a car being hit, which links into the fact that
ground floor.
we know there was a car at the scene, and those two might be interlinked.
Violent street crime in the city rose again last year by
now here's the really interesting thing, you've got another news broadcast just going on there.
From the Department of Justice. Governor Kolvig attributed the change to the dramatic increase in the number of specials registered as city residents and promised a tough new set of standards for the City Immigration Bureau by next month.
But it's worth paying attention to those news broadcasts, because in that one we know there's a comedy robot that might be a bit iffy, and that points towards something as well. So you have your database and you have your photo viewing thing. Now, this is a really clever, fun minigame. My slight quirk with this is a couple of the pictures, if you don't find all the clues, they won't progress the story, and often, as I found mentioned earlier, you won't be able to get to certain scenes. I had a case where I couldn't find a character because it was looking for me by the looks of it to find a picture. So basically every time I went to the scene, he wasn't there. It was until I found an additional clue in one of the pictures, and that really irked me because I'd lost about 2 hours trying to find a hint. And it turns out I had to just go back and check the pictures because it's not always clear what's in the pictures. So you can see here, zooming in on Runziter in this photo, see if we can check. You don't know actually what you're looking for, you just have to sort of take a bit of a guess, you know what might be suspicious. So in this picture we are looking to see if there's something of interest, and of course you can probably tell there's a shape of a woman near the cage who's partly obscured. We also have Lucy's desk at the back here, and you know if you found something because the camera will zoom in on it in the picture, so you can see there we've got a
from Howie Lee's. Give me a hard copy of that.
Chopsticks and well, in fact, the menu for the same place, so it's probably good we go to Howie's in Chinatown. And the other thing is, just zooming in on this just to see, you can only zoom in on certain bits. You can zoom in on everything, but it will only, unless it actually zooms in and rotates, will you actually have found something of interest. So the next thing to do is actually zoom in on Lucy herself. Let's see if we can get a picture of Lucy. Let's see, can we check the back of her leg or anything? Nope, not there. Okay, so we can see that's what appears to be Lucy there. Let's zoom in. Well, in fact, we know it is from the intro, but technically McCoy doesn't. And there we go.
Hello there, Lucy. Give me a hard copy of that.
We now have an image of Lucy. You'll notice how, even though we have one still picture, it like zooms around the camera angle. And the other thing is we're going to zoom in on Lucy's leg. And we're going to spot something on Lucy's leg as well.
It's some kind of insect. Give me a hard copy of that.
So we have a bracelet, picture of Lucy, and we know roughly that she may have been something to do with the restaurant. So now we've actually got a picture of just before Runziter was stormed. So let's see if we can look at the main suspect.
He looks familiar. Give me a hard copy of that.
It's a bit annoying where he says he seems familiar. I think that's referenced later on where he says something else, but it's a bit weird that he seems familiar. Well, we haven't met him yet. So I'm going to see if we can ID the second suspect on the back. But that's just a standard sort of zoom in, so we can't see. Or we can work out it's a big guy, and we know he had a butcher's cleaver as well in the intro. Let's zoom in on suspect A's boots.
Muddy boots. Guess he's from out of town. Give me a hard copy of that.
And we can tell from that he's got to be off-world. So of course the mention of a car. Can we see a car out back? Yes, we do. We have a black car. And I think that might be Lucy sitting in one of the seats at the back.
Give me a hard copy of that.
But as you see there, we have a black car, which also fits that hit and run incident as well mentioned on the radio. Can we check the license plate? Yes, of course we can. So there's a really
Local
interesting
license
discovery
plate? Give me a
system
hard
in this.
copy.
The problem is you have to know exactly where to look, and occasionally it's not always clear what you're looking for. And unfortunately there are certain bits, I mentioned, if you don't find certain clues from the pictures, it won't progress. Now I'm going to upload all the information to the database. This is where we upload all our case information, and you also download other members' case information as well, and it'll just confirm what it's uploading and downloading.
Clue database transfer complete.
Now we can review the evidence, and we can also check if anyone's working on any linked cases as well, which is really a nice idea. Admittedly, there's only 1 or 2 linked cases, so although you can play through the game, there are differences when you play through the game a second and third and fourth time. There's not really enough, I would argue. In the linked cases, you'll get different information. There's a couple of different interview clips and sound bites. You don't always get all of them in each playthrough, so
you can keep going, but your score's going to suffer.
So I'm doing a side main playthrough separately, where I'm up to Act 4, and I had slightly different clues from one of the interviews that I got when I was actually in this replay, where I was just going through the start again. But oh yeah, this is interesting.
Poor guy. I bet he gets all
A couple of hints that would have given me hints towards other things had I known about them.
Goose could be one tough hombre.
But there is a case of you've got to be a good detective in this. If you find the clues and stuff, they will hint towards certain characters and things like that, so you can ascertain what's going on a little bit before. Because the first time round I missed a few clues, a couple of the suspects did literally get the drop on me and managed to get away and things like that.
Come back
So
at me when
there's
you got something worthwhile, McCoy.
you can be a bit of an incompetent cop, or you can play it as a very neat cop. So this is the shooting gallery, which, as many of you are aware, if you've actually managed to get it to run on previous systems, was very hit and miss originally. So I practiced a bit of this before. I've not quite beaten Steele's score, but I've got close to it. So I know roughly which targets are what and when to shoot. This is actually rather long and a bit slow, I must admit, the shooting gallery, but this is one section that if you tried to install on a modern machine, this was one of them that this section would have some serious problems. But this shows you the gunplay in the game, which is quite nice. There's also a great chance for me just to have a chat about the other things in the game. So, as I said, this is actually the first time, this weekend's the first time I've actually played it, although I've had a copy for about 9 years, and now I actually picked it up in Edinburgh Flea Market, which I mentioned on the blog. And it was one of those games that I never got when we had a PC. We got a PC in about 99, the first proper PC. I know it didn't have one in 97 when this came out. I seem to recall in the UK this wasn't around that much in about 99. I don't remember there being many budget versions. I know they said there were a lot of budget re-releases, perhaps in the US. There didn't seem to be as many in Europe. This was done by Westwood Studios, and it was also done by Virgin Interactive. Apparently there was possible plans for a sequel I saw in one YouTube video. The guy doing rough rundown, but the suggestion was the royalty holders wanted too much, and because of the royalty deal Virgin and Westwood had struck over the game, they hadn't actually made that much money on the original, and they would have to sold an awful lot more on the sequel, so they cancelled it. So really that's a big shame. That's probably the royalty holders being a little bit, maybe wanting a bit too much cash, because unfortunately, as we know, the Blade Runner IP kind of died a death quite heavily and basically just became the films. It's a shame because this was a fantastic game and they really could have built on this series spectacularly, and of course Westwood Studios aren't around anymore. They were bought by EA, and supposedly, I've heard a couple of things, the general consensus was when Westwood moved to EA, the source code all got basically trashed and destroyed, so they supposedly don't have the source code for this anymore. Although I know from my industry experience, more often than not, we don't have the source codes, and usually codes word for it is basically either lost somewhere in the office on some knackered old PC, or usually staff members in the industry are often better keeping their games, so they may occasionally, taken a copy home for themselves, and that way I do know a few games that have been saved because literally staff members took source code home without proper consent, and then later, a few years later, said actually I've still got the source code. So perhaps someone at Westwood may have managed to obtain the source code before it was all lost. But EA certainly appear to have lost it all. The other thing is, as it's a licensed game, it's unlikely to be reissued unless they agree a license. And if it was reissued, it would likely be on Origins. I think probably because of the Blade Runner license, I can't see this being re-released anytime soon. So unless EA do a deal, it seems doubtful though. Now, I should stress, this game isn't, although this game is not actively being sold, you cannot download this game. There are a couple of places that call games like this abandonware. It's not abandonware, it's just a non-sold title that's still technically an active game. And the problem at the minute, you have EA own the rights to half the game. The license for Blade Runner is owned by the Blade Runner production company, and they have to make an agreement and deal before this ever gets released. Technically, you cannot legitimately download this game. There are sites that do have it up for download, including the Internet Archive site, but I technically must say that you technically cannot download it. You can, however, purchase a second-hand copy from eBay and then do like I did, as I had my copy from 9 years ago. I just basically cleaned the discs as I did, whacked it all in, and then I just followed the guide on the Scum official wiki and copied the relevant files. Should say off the bat, this, even on my modern Windows 7 PC, this won't actually install.
Completed all sequences. Proceed to exit.
There was, as I said, there is a fan patch to get it to run, but you can't. This will not run off the bat. You will need to install fan patches, or as you can now do, as we're using, is use Scum VM, and this version run by Scum is absolutely fantastic. I've not had any problems whatsoever. Plays really smoothly.
Laboratory.
And it's really showing me what a good game this is. So now I'm going to chat to the lab tech and see what we can learn about the items we discovered.
I was wondering when you'd show your mug around here, McCoy. The shell casings from Runciter should be in the Museum of Military History.
How's that?
They're from an Ender rifle. It's standard issue off-world military hardware. Heavy caliber. That puppy can punch right through a tank.
What can I conclude from that?
Whoever used this piece didn't just walk into their local sporting goods store and buy it. Those babies are collectibles, and they ain't cheap.
Anything else?
We got the animal corpses from Runciter's, but there wasn't a whole lot to work with.
Bone marrow?
About 50% were real, the rest were fakes.
So, Runciter was ripping his customers off.
State-of-the-art fakes. Miles beyond the crap you see on Animoid Row.
The kind that comes from legit manufacturers?
They're the ones that usually produce the quality.
What about the wounds?
Most of them were shot point blank, but we're looking at some others. Sloppy cuts with a knife, like the perp was really pissed off at something.
Butcher knife?
Could be, but who cuts meat anymore?
Nice bunch of reps I'm tailing. Hope you're not pulling a meat cleaver out of my back next week. Anything else?
That black paint you found on the fire hydrant? It's from a ground car.
You sure?
The angle of impact was almost head-on. And there ain't too many spinner drivers klutzy enough to smack a street-level hydrant in VTOL mode.
I heard your wife got her license back.
You're a real funny guy, McCoy.
Anything else?
That piece of chrome you found outside of Runciter's is from a 1995 Pontiac.
Nice set of wheels.
It's okay, not what I call a classic.
Any way to find the car's owner?
Well, you'd need the license number or the VIN number from the inside of the door. You run either number through the mainframe and it'll ID the car for you.
Anything else?
Come back at me when you got something worthwhile, McCoy.
Now, I actually have a slight gripe with the lab tech. You can get a lot of evidence the lab tech won't actually be able to analyse, which is quite annoying. I'm just going to show you one of the other interactive items again with the news story.
Dr. Eldon Tyrell, speaking
going
at a
away.
shareholders meeting,
There are a number of items later on in the later acts where I thought, well, I'll see if the lab tech can do anything with this, and some of them thought, well, he should be able to, but couldn't. And there are a few bits in the game where the progression did not flow. In the first two acts flow really very smoothly. The third act, where they start implementing some more branching paths, and that's where things
Lucky
start
strikes.
falling
Crystal's brand.
apart a
I knew she
little. I
was
had a few
spending a
issues
lot of
where
time in the training
one
maze these
character
days,
wouldn't
even
appear
though
in
she'd already
in
gotten
fact,
close
two
to a
characters.
perfect
One
score.
character wouldn't appear in one scene until I'd gone back and double-checked a photograph because I'd missed one clue. Another character wouldn't appear in another scene until I double-checked another photograph and checked. Even though I knew exactly where to go, I'd even seen a character do something or go somewhere, so I thought, well, this is where this case is leading me. And then I just sat wandering round, and in the end, a couple of hours later, I end up giving up, just checking the guide and said, oh yeah, you actually missed this thing in this photograph. And that slightly annoyed me. This actually ironically reminded me of Turkel on the Sega Saturn, which really annoyed me, because that had an issue where you had to, in order to use certain items, you had to find certain cutscenes in Turkel, which is a puzzle game, and that was really irritating. You could literally know what to do with an item, but you had to wait till you had a trigger occur. And that's almost the same here. You can know where to go and what to do, but sometimes on a few cases you need a trigger. And
This is Crystal
the
Steel,
third
badge
chapter
number
I did find was very much, or the fourth chapter in fact, was very much really very
plant. It'll take a day or so to analyze
very
the debris,
random
but
as
there's
to
no
what to
doubt in my
do
mind that
and
we're
where
dealing
to
with a bomber
go.
here. Right now, it looks like the protesters had nothing to do
Certainly
with
at the start.
They were
So
in too
here we've
close
got the
proximity
interviews
to
from the
have been in on
factory
the
bombing,
deal.
which is
No MOs or
Steele's
identities
case,
are rolling up
and you'll
just
get to
yet,
learn a
and
few
I'm still
things
going
about
through the
Steele
inset
listening
files to see
to
if
it.
any replicant munitions experts are unaccounted for. This is Crystal Steel, badge number BR61354, conducting the interrogation of Spencer Gregorian, leader of CARS, Citizens Against Replicant Slavery, November 22nd, 2019.
I once again asked that my attorney...
Shut it, shitbird. I'm asking the questions. We've already put you on the machine, so we know you're not a skin job.
That term offends me.
Okay, so you're not one of those biomechanical scumbags, and you claim to not know anything about the bombing at Tyrell.
This is true. We advocate equal rights under the law for replicants. We have nothing against Tyrell Corporation for creating them.
That's some sick logic.
The replicants are living organisms, whether people like you like it or not. Replicants contribute greatly to the economic well-being of our culture. They cannot be discounted as such.
Hell, it'd be no skin off my nose if each and every one of them was hosed down for good. You ever see this guy?
Why, yes. Actually, I have. He was present at the protest. He's not part of our group, but outsiders are usually welcome.
How many new faces showed up that day?
Not too many. A handful at most.
Describe them to me.
I don't know if I can.
Oh no? Recording off. Describe them for me again.
There was that Rastafarian fellow, and one of our ex-members showed up.
Who's that?
A Japanese man named Izo.
Why'd you get rid of him?
We're a pacifist organization, and we have rules. One of them is no weapons allowed. Izo refused to check in a samurai sword at the door during meetings.
Where can I find this Izo?
He owns one of those little secondhand stores downtown.
Let me ask you a question. Who the hell bankrolls your operation?
Well, we have a number of anonymous donors, people with resources and sources.
Such as?
So anonymous, even I don't know who they are.
I almost believe you.
So yes, there, as you can see, Steele, the female cop, employs some unorthodox message there, chatting to Gregory. In fact, you can also visit Gregory in our cells, Gregory in the cells in the basement. But yeah, she makes him speak like a hummingbird, should we see in that interview.
I'm not the one who makes that decision.
I suppose it's my turn to bear the cross.
So you can also ask him about your cases in relating to a few questions. So we know we've got a couple of suspicious guys. There's a guy, we've got a sort of Rastafarian character, another character called Izo, who both of them sound a bit dubious, and we may well be encountering them in the later acts in this game.
Yes, sir, we're growing fast. As more and more people realize that replicants have cognitive and emotional legitimacy, the Citizens Against Replicant Slavery will spearhead the movement towards...
Save the pitch for someone who gives a shit. What else do you guys do besides wave signs and get arrested?
We're peaceful people, Detective. We live by a code that men like you could never understand.
Try me.
2 centuries ago, humans were held in slavery. Brave souls formed an underground railroad, a way for the slaves to escape cruelty and find freedom.
So, you help replicants escape the city.
I'm talking figuratively, Detective.
Sure you are.
We're not children, Detective. We have resources. Friends with access to vehicles, to escape routes. The world is changing. people are waking up to the injustices perpetrated by a sick society that you have helped...
A lot of them will wake up dead if reps are allowed to run amok on Terra, jerk. I got some more questions for you. Tell me about your protest at Tyrell's plant.
I already told that other detective everything. Under duress.
I want to know about the people who were there. The Rastafarian and the Asian guy with the sunglasses.
I didn't know the Rastafarian. The Asian fellow was one of our ex-members. Izo was his name.
How long did you know him for?
Let's see. I met him about 5 years ago. He seemed so smart and balanced. He really wanted to help the replicant people.
Then what?
He started associating with the more militant factions. I was astounded when I heard he was supplying weapons to some of them.
What kind of weapons?
Everything and anything. Guns so new that even the police had hardly used them, I heard.
Gregor and Spencer. You could also chat to your police captain as well, but that was a... But as we know, he's human. There's not much point in doing the Voight-Kampff thing on him. All it does is make him angry, and then he refuses to talk to him. In fact, a few of the suspects and people, if you make them angry, will not chat to you.
Bryant go on permanent leave and you get full use of the office, Lieutenant?
You know the procedure. Dump it all in the mainframe upstairs and I'll read it later.
You got it.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, this game runs parallel alongside the film events. So you see some of the film characters, there's a couple of cameos, and there's some crossovers as well. But they don't directly interfere, although both sets of Reploids, the ones in the film and ironically this game, all have the same objective, which did feel a little bit weird to me. That was the one thing. There were a few bits I did feel the plot, I think they kind of, for me, I think the later acts in this, Act 4 is where things have started to me. There's been some interesting ideas, but things have got a little bit silly in one or two places, I felt, and a couple of points don't quite tick over. But overall, I must admit, this is a very well written game. The dialogue is superb. Now, this is a point I want to say. Having been to the tech lab, Guy, we know some of Runziker's animals were now fake, and you would expect the crowd to still be here and stuff, and you actually want to go over here and challenge Runziker. However, we can't do, because he's actually already basically vanished. Now, this is a couple of things like this in the game really annoy me, because they should have given you the option. Ironically, in Act 4, you can encounter Runziker again, and you can challenge him about what's been going on. But unfortunately, because of what happens in Act 4, that feels a bit twee, because Act 4 basically events
destination
spiral by that point, and let's just say you're having a hard time yourself investigating the case, and it's a bit weird that you can't challenge Runziker in Act 1. And another issue I have is that often you will actually get scenes that link together. Like here, we can actually go all the way along to the hotel if you follow the path on the right.
McCoy,
however,
LPD.
you can't do in
Act
Act 1, you have to do in a later act, and that then creates a slight confusion for the player, because previously where the arrows wouldn't take you, there's now suddenly walkways, even though it's not clear, and that is a mistake, I think, by Westwood, because basically there are certain areas where you should still have the active arrow, and if you click on them, he says, I don't need to go that way just yet. But instead at the minute, Westwood didn't even give you the arrow pointer, so like here you can actually go all the way along to the hotel, but it's not clear. And I had a few points later on where I was like, well, where do I go now? And then suddenly I found, oh, hang on, this corridor here that you never used to be able to walk down, now you can. And things like that really annoyed me. So, as you can see there, we're going to start quizzing him over the information that we discovered about Lucy.
All Gaijin look like the old man.
This from your place, isn't it?
Could be. Chopstick come from Yoshi's restaurant supply.
This from your place, isn't it?
Yes, sir. You do Howie a favor? Distribute all through our police station?
How long has that chef worked for you?
Zubin? Just month. Superior ship makes all kinds of new suits.
Heard there was an accident down here. A hit and run.
Ha! There are more accidents than Suido no Nezumi, Suwa rats.
What's real fresh tonight?
Special shipment of Toro just arrived. I fix you right up. No one else.
It's already been tested?
Clean as a whistle.
You're Prince, Howie.
So I'm just going to emphasise the point in the fact that you can't walk this way just yet, even though in a few minutes you will be able to, and that feels a bit weird because that you build up a mental map in your mind of the scene, and then all of a sudden later on, oh hang on, you can just walk this way. Now I'm just going to save it because I want to make sure I do the option that I want to get. So if I say I'm going to go down the pacifist route that you will see me showing, because I've not seen anyone else show the pacifist route for this sequence, but now the first time I did this I was caught off guard, so let's see if I can not make the same mistakes twice I did when the first time I played this.
Howie says you're a master chef.
You not come back here. Air bad.
This'll only take a minute. You know this girl or not?
Nope. I know who I know, and who I don't know. I don't know her.
Think hard.
Okay. Maybe seen her once. At station. Riding north on bullet train.
North, huh?
Okay, so there you go. You can actually, if you're fast enough, you can dodge that being thrown all over you. So as you can see there, Zubo is making break for the exit. And we're going after him, even though despite the fact he'd just be straight ahead of us. Now, you'll see there I could actually target that homeless man. You can actually be quite ruthless in this, and you can shoot a few innocent bystanders, including this guy. However, you shoot him, this does have an impact on the story later on, and he's actually quite useful as well, because you encounter him in one of the later chapters to chat to as well, and he provides some interesting information, so what you do is up to you. Now, here we go, we're still chasing after Zubo. When I originally did this, I completely screwed up. Zubo got the drop on me, and by the time I got up here, I could not find any trace of Zubo. As you can see here, he has his item, and I'm going to go for the pacifist route, so I'm going to withdraw my gun, and then we can start chatting to him.
What do you want from Zuben?
Just talk, that's all.
So
you could of course go for the true Blade Runner route and just shoot him dead, or retire him if you want as well.
I'm McCoy, LPD Rep Detective.
And depending what your options are will slightly impact the story, although
sometimes
I must admit,
we're called Blade Runners.
I think some of the characters don't appear that much later on. If you basically if you keep them alive or retire them, they don't really show up in the next chapter, even if you kept them alive. So that's one story progression I didn't perhaps like, that basically I think they may turn up right at the end or something, but it does feel a bit contrived. Okay, so this is basically the end of Act 1. Now, I should have actually gone back and searched the dustbin that the hobo was looking through, and I'd have found the license plate.
Earning your stripes, McCoy.
But I won't show that in this video. So we're actually talking to Gaff now, and this is actually one of the film characters.
I understand it's got a hell of a retirement plan.
Although he's not portrayed by his film
actor.
actor.
Swung that moonbus massacre last month.
They ever find the moonbus?
Disappeared into thin air. Brian thinks it crashed out in the Kipple.
But this is where I'll wrap up this video, so I hope you enjoyed this look at Blade Runner. I can highly recommend it, and if you fancy getting a cheap copy, do look at trying to get second-hand one, picking up on eBay.
Gotcha.
The minute there aren't any digital distribution services, I know people have said Good Old Games, but it's unlikely to be on Good Old Games because this is an EA game, so if it does ever appear, it'll be on Origins, EA's Origins platform. But it seems doubtful due to all the licensing involved, and there hasn't really been many other Blade Runner games since this one. But it is a fantastic point-and-click adventure, one of the best I've ever played actually. It's really superb. It does have a few niggles, as I've explained. I do think the early chapters are slightly better than the late ones, but there's some great replay value, and I wish more games had incorporated that in the future. well, the future sort of point-and-click titles. Many of them don't really have that sort of replay value. This is a superb title, and I do recommend it. And that's where I'll finish for now. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe, please do hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell for more notifications.